Well, HOH stands for Help Our Heroes, and that's exactly what we need to do for the men and women who have risked their lives for our country. There are 2 events coming up where you can make a difference in these soldiers' lives, and here to tell us more is Travis Wilson, Chairman of the Board of Helping Our Heroes, and Brandon Pelletier, Marine and Guest of Honor at this year's HOH benefit. Good morning to you both. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about HOH and what y'all have going on?
Sure. So like we were talking before we started, Helping Our Heroes started about 4 years ago. A gentleman named Trip Bomar and I went to a charity golf event. You know how you get invited to a lot of these, and a lot of them are very similar. It was undersold to us because when we got there, we had a gentleman like Brandon who spoke and kind of told his personal story about the injuries and the struggles that the Marines and sailors and soldiers have when they come back home. And it really struck a chord with a lot of us. And so we said, if they can do this in St. Louis, we can do it in Dallas. And so 4 years ago, Trip and I and 30 of our closest friends started this organization, and we raised money with simply a golf tournament. First year we raised $50,000 for somebody like Brandon, and then it grew to 85, and then 100, and then we eventually got our contributions matched, where it took the contributions up to $200,000, and that was the first 3 years. This year we've actually split off the event, you know, not just the golf and auction. The secret's out that we're trying to get more female audience. So we're doing a dinner this Sunday night at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, and we'll do the dinner and the band and the auction. Brandon will speak, and we have another guest of honor, the retired Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, which is a big deal. 4-star from D.C., actually lives in the area, and he's going to speak to us as well.
That's
so.
Great.
That's a little bit about the history, and why we do it is because of young men and women like Brandon that give so much that we need to make sure that we continue to give back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about you and your story?
I was injured in night combat operations in 2007 in Iraq. I was United States Marines. My right arm is paralyzed below the elbow. Thankfully, I got to keep it. So you know, that's very important. And yeah, there it is. And it's been amazing because most of the time you go on a deployment, you get done, you come back, start working up for the next one. But when you get injured, everything changes.
Right.
Everything changes. You come to a hospital, you don't know if your family knows or what they know. Most of the time, you don't have any way of getting in contact with them because a lot of the time, depending on the injury, the guys are in comas or you know, medically induced comas, or just out just because of the traumatic injuries that they face.
So you're relying on the military to contact your family.
And they do a great job, but then again, when you're in the hospital, you have no clothes, you have nothing. So it's organizations like the Injured Marine Semper Fi funds that build backpacks, that do all these steps above the regular. And I remember waking up in the hospital, and a wonderful lady came in and brought me a bag and said, you know, there's socks, there's a little, I mean, this was 2007, and a CD cassette player thing was amazing to me. It wasn't an iPod, it wasn't an iPad, or none of this. It was just a little CD player with a couple CDs, and a Go phone to call my folks, and sweatpants because it was so cold in there, and socks.
How long were you in the hospital?
I was maybe a month because you transfer from units in Iraq, so it was like Al-Assad, Balad. Then I went to Germany and stayed there for a while, and had some surgeries before you come home to the States. So they have to stabilize you before you fly back, and that's a long flight.
What do you want people to know about what it's like when you come back to the States after you've been injured? What's it like for you having made such a great sacrifice, and then sometimes I mean, it's hard when you get back, and there are not a lot of resources. I want you to really tell it, you know, get down and deep for me right now, and tell the people watching what we can do to help to make it so it's not as traumatic when you come home.
Well, the great thing is that it has gotten better, but imagine getting in a car accident, getting knocked unconscious, and then waking up in the middle of the woods. You have no bearings, you have no understanding of what's around you, you have nothing to help you survive. So it's a very scary time, especially when you're just like in such a vulnerable position. And that's where this organization, like the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund and Helping Our Heroes comes in, is they clear the forest, they bring in light, and they bring in a team to say, you're not doing this alone. And that's the amazing point about me being able to now represent an organization that helped me get me on my feet, because there's no way I'd be here without without the good support of great Americans and organizations like the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, helping our heroes. I mean, it's made a huge difference.
Well, it sounds like the event Sunday is just going to be wonderful. And of course, chicks like golf too, so when the golf tournament comes around. But to find out more about the upcoming HOH events, you can visit www.helpingourheroes.com or swing by thebroadcasttv.com and we'll get you connected. Great.